السيدات والسادة، أعضاء ومنتسبو نادي الموارد البشرية، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا محدثتكم وعود الدرمكي من الهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية. اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بكم اليوم أجمل ترحيب في الملتقى السادس لنادي الموارد البشرية لهذا العام. قبل 13 عاماً من الآن انطلق نادي الموارد البشرية كواحد من مبادرات الهيئة الاستراتيجية، واستطاع خلالها تحقيق الكثير من الإنجازات والتطلعات، وما زال يسير قدماً نحو جمع أكبر شريحة ممكنة من المختصين والمهتمين بالموارد البشرية تحت سقف واحد. السيدات والسادة، لقد شكل النادي خلال الأعوام الماضية مظلة لأكثر من 12,000 مختص ومهتم بالموارد البشرية على مستوى الدولة والعالم، كما عقد أكثر من 70 ملتقى وجلسة تخصصية استضاف فيها متحدثين محليين وعالميين لعرض ونقل أفضل الخبرات والممارسات والحلول والتجارب في عالم الموارد البشرية والعلوم الإدارية والخدمات المساندة، وحضرها ما لا يقل عن 50,000 منتسب ومهتم. في هذا الملتقى الاستثنائي سنسلط الضوء على استخدامات الذكاء الاصطناعي في إدارة الموارد البشرية، حيث نستضيف مجموعة من أبرز خبراء ومختصي الموارد البشرية ممثلين من عدة مؤسسات محلية وعالمية شريكة للهيئة. ستكون أجندة اليوم مقسمة على فترتين. الجلسة الأولى يقدمها أعضاء من المجلس الاستشاري للموارد البشرية، وتديرها السيدة منى عواد من شركة كينغزلي جيت. أما الجلسة الثانية سيقدمها السيد ديفيد إدواردز من شركة SHL الشريك الاستراتيجي للهيئة. في حال وجود أي استفسارات أو مداخلات خلال الجلسات يمكنكم طلب الميكروفون من موظفي الفندق المعنيين. أما الآن فاسمحوا لي أن أرحب بالسيدة منى عواد من شركة كينغزلي جيت لإدارة الجلسة الأولى لهذا اليوم، فلتتفضل مشكورة. The moderator for the first session today, Ms. Muna Awad. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, sabah al-khair. Thank you for joining us today, and what I will do in this just quick snapshot is give you an idea of what we have prepared or in store for you in the next 2 hours. So just very quickly, what we will be having a quick presentation introducing the topic of AI by our fellow speaker, James Vincent, who is the head of Human Capital Culture Strategy Planning with ADNOC. And then we'll look at a panel discussion, and during that panel discussion, we'll talk and go through specific examples of what companies have done, their success stories, but also get a dialogue of questions that are on top of everyone's mind in regards to AI. And that will take us about an hour with the opportunity to have a Q&A session towards the end of the panel discussion. And then we'll see how time-wise we'll manage the interaction with the audience. We'll get a coffee break in, and then towards the end, we'll try to make sure that we get some exchange of what you do in your respective organizations. So we'll have a couple of questions that we would like to ask the audience and get an interaction. So please, by all means, all the conversations that we're going to have throughout the next hour and a half, if there are areas that you believe your companies are doing well, your departments are excelling in, this is a great platform and a forum for us to share and exchange ideas. And then towards the end, after we finish from the Human Capital Advisory Council, we will be handing over, as Mr. Ahoud mentioned, to the second half of the session, and we'll be with Dr. David Edwards, Head of Talent Solutions with SHL. And without further ado, if I may ask our speaker, James Vincent, to join us here at the stage. And I'll hand it over to you with the kind of, I always call it the seed gripper in regards to what AI, and introducing really AI to us. So please. Yes, I'll just grab very quickly.
Sabal Khair. Good morning. So my name is James, and what I want to do in the next 15 minutes is get your brains thinking on all things to do with artificial intelligence, okay? I'm in charge of HR transformation, and my job normally is to bring out new ideas to CEOs, to leadership teams, to really get them thinking about what the future of their company will be. And there is no bigger topic than artificial intelligence. So over the next 15 minutes, hopefully, I will get some thoughts firing in your brains and we can have a good exchange. So let's start with artificial intelligence. Actually, let's start with cars, because cars are more exciting than artificial intelligence. Let's start. Which cars do you drive? Shout out. Who drives a Mercedes? Ah, very common in the UAE. Anyone drive a Nissan Patrol? Thank you. There must be one. All right, let's up it a notch. Ferraris. No? If anyone finds a Ferrari driver, come and see me. I want to borrow their car. All right, let's up it a notch. Teslas. Do we have any Tesla drivers? Sir, I saw your hand go up, and I may come to you later. Okay, what has cars got to do with artificial intelligence? Well, what's cars got to do with horses? A horse and cart and a Tesla. What has more intelligence? Anyone want to take a guess? If you think a horse has more intelligence, raise your hands. Have you ever ridden a horse? No, they scare me actually, horses. What I'm trying to show on the slide here is an evolution. Many, many centuries ago, the horse and cart was invented, and it was a transformational wonder stroke around the world. To give you an idea, it's only a couple of thousand years, a few centuries ago, Romans, Greeks invented the horse and cart. And now we have a Tesla, which can drive itself. It won't stop you going out of the lanes. It will brake for you. It will change its driving patterns based on your behavior. So, anyone want to guess what these two things have in common? The horse and cart and the Tesla? What do they have in common? Centuries apart, hundreds of years apart. What do they have in common? Sorry? Horsepower. Ah, you see, I thought that. But no, not horsepower. But that is where they came from. Great link, well played. Any others? Louder, sorry? Movement. They both move, I totally agree. Both driving forward, which is what AI is. What else? Ah, you see, I can't hear. Louder? Strategy, direction. Yeah, okay. They all have that in common. That's not what I'm looking for. One more shout. They both have wheels. They all have wheels. That's not what I'm looking for. Centuries apart, what do they all have in common? Stop if something's there, yeah? No, it's not what I'm looking for. You're so close. Okay, the common denominator has and always will be people. Centuries ago, the horse and cart doesn't drive itself, does it? And the Tesla, whilst the technology exists, if you go to Yas Island now, you see taxis without drivers, okay, driving around. But for everyday life, there's still a driver behind the wheel of a Tesla. And what happens, ladies and gentlemen, if you get the wrong person? That happens, yeah? You can have underneath the hoofs of a horse, or you can end up crashing your Tesla. And if you're thinking right now, what is this crazy English guy talking to us about? We've come here today to learn about artificial intelligence and cutting-edge technology. Well, let's up it a notch. The horses that you still ride today, they're trained and will generally follow the instructions that they're given. The AI inside a car has rules. It has parameters. And AI and the future of AI is only as effective as the rules that you give it. The policies inside your company is what AI will follow. The instructions that you give it as leaders and people will be as good as the outcome that it delivers for you. So straight away, I'm trying to link the evolution of AI to one common denominator, people. And what you will hear today from our panel and from me in the next 10 minutes is the opportunities that AI brings, but also the threats. I'm asking you all now to give me an example of AI. You could probably do it. Only last night, I was talking to a friend in the UK who was asking me about Cameroon and had I ever visited Cameroon. What did my iPhone greet me with this morning when I turned it on? Tourist trips. Would I like to invest in Cameroon as an advert on my phone? You don't know it, but every time you send a WhatsApp, every time you are logging on to your systems at work, AI is already there, looking at your patterns and behaviors. From what you shop with on Amazon to the places you go and the things that you do, it's all being tracked. And AI is learning all of the time. To bring it to life, artificial intelligence is everywhere. The leading bank in Asia, I met the customer head of experience yesterday. I said to him, how many artificial intelligence work streams do you have within your company? I expected him to say 1 or 2. For the customer-facing section alone, they had 240 different AI initiatives. 240. I sat there and thought, well, I can only think of 5 or 6. But when you really get into it, it's involved in every part of your being. And he doubled down. He said there's not 240 front office. Back office alone, we have 1,000 different artificial intelligence work streams. 1,000 in the back office. Every time your child logs on to a PlayStation and plays a game, AI is watching what they do. You're linked to the social networks and you're playing the games, it's watching your behaviors so that they can make the games better and more addictive. Every time you ask ChatGPT a question, the machine is learning. Anybody used Emirates recently? Yeah? I use Emirates. I asked it a question the other day on the interactive customer service network. It was incredible. They moved my flight, dates, charged my credit card within 3.5 minutes without me speaking to a person. I was blown away. What incredible service. All from AI, artificial intelligence. You're probably using artificial intelligence now without you even knowing it. Who here has done a psychometric? Psychometric tests? Surely, right? We're all familiar with those. They've been around for years, right? Is artificial intelligence linked to psychometrics? 100%. And I'm sure you'll hear about this from Dr. David later on today. Now, to make it a little bit less scary, AI has been around for a very, very long time. In 1997, AI first beat the best chess player in the world. I remember seeing that on the news. In 1999, and I remember this vividly, because I was stood at 5 a.m. in a queue outside Toys R Us in the UK, queuing for this dog here. Remember the dog? You must remember this, 1999. It was the toy of the year, and it was really hard to get it. But this toy learnt. The more you played with it, the more interactive the toy got. And that was the start of artificial intelligence. Where we are today is it's coming into every single part of our day-to-day existence without you even realizing it. And I don't want to scare you, but I'm going to try. They say that in 2020, where we are now, AI is already capable of doing more than one task. But in 20 years from now, it's going to have the same intelligence as everybody sat in this room. And by 2060, they'll be cleverer than us. For those of you who like your 1980s movie references, I'm telling you that the Terminator is real and that it may happen. But for those of you who have never seen the Terminator, what I'm trying to say here is that the technology will not stop. And you'll hear later on from the panel about the ethics of that and what that really means for not just our companies, but the culture and the society we live in. Now, in the few minutes that I've been talking to you, I've not mentioned the UAE. And I'm extremely proud to live and work in this country. And we lead the way here on so many things. I know that the Hyperloop that opens up between Abu Dhabi and Dubai will be a world first. And from the tallest buildings to the best airports, everything we do in this country is first class. But we also know that we love shiny new things in the UAE. We really do. The newer, the bigger, the better. I want it. I want it now. And the question that we always have to ask is, are we really ready for artificial intelligence? Is your company ready? If you're a CEO and you're really having a hard look about where your company is, are we ready to embrace it? And to sort of build on that, the big questions for you as leaders isn't about AI. It's about the things that are currently underpinning your entire organization. For example, how good are your current people? Do you believe that you have best-in-class people? If you don't, I go back to my analogy of crashing the Tesla, all that AI will do will emphasize that if there's something not right underneath, it makes that experience quicker for the people. Let me give you an example. That Emirates example I gave, 3.5 minutes to change my flight. If your policies aren't great, all that will happen is I will log on as a consumer to your website. Maybe it's interacting on a government portal to pay a speeding fine. Or maybe it's to get a new form for my new house, a clearance certificate. If the people programming it are programming bad things, instead of me having a really good experience with AI, the computer will just simply say, no, very fast. And maybe it'd be right to speak to a person who would sit down and say, explain what you needed to do in the next steps. Remember, AI is only as good as the people that are programming it. And then your policies. Are you really happy with the policies and the culture in your organization? AI is the next shiny thing. But there are companies in this region that do not have the basics in place. I'm talking about the internal basics of performance management, of automated succession planning, about workforce planning. All the AI tools are there. You could go out tomorrow and spend millions of dollars on the best workforce planning tool, which would use AI and give you incredible, incredible data. But if you're not ready to use it, the question for all of you today is, what do we need to do to get ready? And is it going to enhance your offering or be a distraction? Final comment. I asked AI, because I was thinking, how am I going to do this presentation today? I asked AI a question. You have ChatGPT on your phone? I asked ChatGPT a question this morning, and I said, if I was talking to an audience, should they be scared of artificial intelligence, or should they embrace it? ChatGPT told me, artificial intelligence is here to enhance your overall well-being. Those that embrace it will fly to new heights. This is what the computer told me. Will fly to new heights, and those that don't will be left behind. Already, artificial intelligence is telling me what to do. Already. The question for all of you as an audience is, are you ready and mature enough to embrace it, or are you extremely scared? Grab a coffee, have a think, and when we get into the panel, we're really going to understand what AI means for your business. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Excellent, great. Thank you so much for coming back with your coffees, ready for our panel. If I may invite to come in Burcu Ozcan, HR Director for Middle East with Biogen, please, if you can come in. We have Natalia Kisina, HR Vice President, Secure Power with Schneider Electric. And James Vincent, who was introduced just a couple of minutes ago. Please, if you can join us, James.
To put you in the middle, wherever you
Yeah. Great. Excellent. And myself, Muna Awad, I've not done an introduction earlier, but just for our audience to know, I'm with Kingsley Gate, a partner for Middle East, but also I chair the Human Capital Advisory Council, and it's been a real great honor working with Fahar organization on being able to exchange best practices across the private sector and government. So thank you, and let's start. Good, so thank you all. What I'm gonna do at this point, I'm gonna more keep it easy. So I'm not gonna throw any questions at the moment. But what I would like to do, and probably be important for the audience to get to know more about your organization and potentially give us more a success story or one of the key elements that you have succeeded in within HR using AI. So if I may, starting with you, Natalia, please.
Sure. So I'm from Schneider Electric. We are the global leader in energy management and energy automation. For those of you who don't know, we are quite a large corporation of 30 plus billion euro in revenues, globally speaking. We're present in over 100 countries across the world and employ 130,000 of employees across the globe. I think one example that I want to share, and I think it's a successful example of use of an AI within HR domain, right? And in 2020, as we remember, this year when we all got faced with COVID, we had a pilot that was running in some of the countries on testing something that internally we called open silent market. So since we are currently in a world where our economy is no longer about having one job, right? It's about having a job and doing something else. So we really wanted to bring this concept of internal gig economy into Schneider. And we start testing how this can work in a company like ours that is present in so many countries. So we partner with AI, let's say, expert, a company that creates AI-powered solution on something that would mimic an internal kind of talent market or a job market, if you wish. And I'm pretty sure that companies and many organizations have those solutions in their companies. But the difference is that we put a machine learning and AI overlay on it to enable people to identify their skills and their competences that they have today, decide which skills and competences they are missing, and for AI and machine learning, connect people with opportunities, with short-term project assignments, and even with mentors. Now, in 2019, it was still a pilot in a few countries, but in 2020, when many of us were not able to go to the office, right, and we all started to working from home, we said, you know what, let's launch it globally and see what will be the outcome, right? And we launched it in April 2020. And arguably speaking, because during COVID, since a lot of people, especially in large countries, who did not drive in the office, they would save a commute time going to the office and coming back, right? And let's put a number to that. Let's say, I don't know, 1.5 hours a day. So 1.5 hours a day, you freed up from the time that you would normally commute to work. And by introducing the open talent market internally, using AI, connecting people to short-term assignments, to mentors, to opportunities, we actually have measured the success of unlocking hours of productivity from people that was saving the time on commute. So me sitting in Dubai, let's say I was wanting to learn something, and I'm in HR, and let's say I have an idea, I want to do something in sales, and I want to do a market research for, let's say, a market in e-commerce, whatever, we can pick any example, right? So if I put that as a need and a skill that I want to develop, then the next day or the same day, I would wake up, and in my inbox, I will find opportunities that could suit the needs that I identified for myself to develop, or I would find names of mentors, you know, who could help me to develop those skills, or I will actually find actual jobs available within Schneider to apply for those opportunities. And now we are building on this platform more and more and introducing more functions. So now there is a career planning option as well. So you can actually map out to where you are today and where you want to be. And then AI, you know, and a machine learning element will give you a rundown of a critical experience that you need to develop in order to get from point A to point B. And it will again connect you to short-term projects, opportunities, mentors, and so on. So I think that's a very good way of leveraging technology in HR. And it's also a very probably pragmatic way, since we are living in a quite globalized world, right, to create and open opportunities for people across the world, cross borders, right, in different countries, you know, to expand knowledge, to expand skills, and build on their future. So that's one example.
If I may, just a follow-up question here, because it'd be interesting to know, it is a journey. So if we look at the employees that are on Open Talent, what does Schneider do to ensure the utilization of such tool? How do you ensure that, you know, employees are aware that they have this opportunity, that they can go, or how do you encourage them to really be part of that, that structure or that platform?
Look, I think one benefit of that, because it's an in-house tool, right? So in terms of the kind of ethics, right, it's all governed by our specific policies and governance principles. If we speak about data privacy regulations, all of that is embedded, and the benefit, what James was speaking earlier, right, is the people that develop the tools, right, are those that will actually have a say in how it will be built and how productive it will be. So the benefit is that it is an in-house tool. And to your question on how do we build this level of awareness, well, a lot of trainings on that as well, a lot of conversation. Just recently, a couple of weeks back, I was with our global finance community speaking about open talent market and the benefits of it. So a lot of, you know, encouragements and kind of, you know, creating this appetite and sharing also good stories, right? So kind of highlighting what works, what worked well, and maybe sharing some stories of people that did find their next opportunity. So people that actually use a short-term assignment to develop critical skills, or people had a fantastic mentorship relationship as a result of that tool. So a lot of that, and I think here, it actually builds nicely to, would AI be able to do that? To promote, you know, this tool for the masses? I think the answer in my mind, and maybe I'm pessimistic, I think probably no, because it does require, at least today, right? Because it does require, you know, to kind of connect people, to bring the stories, to make them visible. And I think this is the role of HR as well, becomes super critical. HR and leaders, you know, to speak to benefits and the opportunities of such tools, technologies within the organization.
Great, thank you. I'll move to Biogen. Within biopharma, the fast pace of the industry, a lot of learning and development, I'm sure, is required. And I know we talked about this earlier on, Burcu. Can you give us a little bit more of insight on the successes you have had in regards, in which capabilities and areas that you have implemented AI, please?
Sure, thank you very much, Mona. Can you hear me well? Okay, good. I will start from the learning and development piece. I think it was really striking for me seeing the development in the last 3 years in that area. Now, as of today, based on these developments, we don't have a global training and learning department anymore, not locally, not globally. Well, what happened in this like 3 years period? Now, as James mentioned, we have the performance management system in place, integrated into a HRIS tool, succession planning policy in place, integrated into our HRIS tool, and then slowly it developed into like the AI gathers the information about the employees, the development areas, the strengths, how they want to develop through the individual development plans again in the system. and recommends training programs, mentoring programs, and it connects the employees to the learning platforms. So there is selection of the learning modules proposed, recommended by the AI, no human touch at all. Again, there is a mentoring platform, mentoring program. If the mentoring program is recommended, employee has an access to the mentoring program. Again, no human touch intervention up until that point. So when you look at our global enterprise learning team, it is down, I don't want to scare you at all, but it is now 5 people working in that department globally. So what those people are doing, basically, they are developing content. They are the content developers. There is no learning administration is in place anymore. But I mean, how we converted I think the role of HR business partner in this conversion becoming more and more important. So we converted the learning administrator roles into HR business partnering roles, because employees, they need guidance. Managers, they need guidance. They need to talk to somebody to give them coaching. So I think this is emphasizing the role of HR business partnering and less on back end and administrative work, I would say. So I think this is where we are right now, completely like hands off on the learning side in Biogen, and it's pretty much utilized because this is the only way. There is no other way. I mean, if somebody is in the company as an employee, this is the only way of having the development in place. So it is 100% utilized, I would say.
And just if we can build on this, Burcu, because if we take a look at learning and development, I mean, there are different avenues. If you have learning in groups, and I'm sure within Biogen there still are learning sessions where you do have groups of people and they share and learn on you know, kind of in a forum like this. But if we also look at, and I think it'd probably be interesting for the audience to zoom a little bit more on the individual learning and development. So can you give us a little bit more insight on how do you really structure what becomes individual, what becomes group, who's then responsible for that? Are those the content developers, the leaders of the organization? How do you really be able to tailor or customize the AI usage to create something more tailored to the group of people? Yeah.
Well, it is the leaders and the individuals, I would say. Leaders, by having this coaching discussion with the HR business partners, they are having more like expanded views, and then individuals as well. So these are, I mean, leaders and the employees, they are customizing these programs for themselves. In terms of the classroom trainings, by the way, we really stepped away from the classroom trainings. The trainings are mainly happening on e-learning platforms, and in half of the occasions actually, the trainer is an AI face as well. We don't use real human presenting and giving the training. You can easily give the text and the training material to the AI, and then there is a real person actually, image, is talking to you and giving the training as well. And our classroom trainings are experience sharings like that. So the facilitation becomes more and more important. So we need more and more facilitators to make this experience sharing more beneficial to each other, basically.
And that's across all the training programs, whether it's individual skills capabilities, whether it's, you know, specific products or new launches. That's actually across the board.
Correct.
Wow, great, thank you. Thank you. Moving to ADNOC, and I'm quite curious, James, and thank you so much earlier on in regards to really kind of getting us more thinking around the everyday today that we get involved in, and really how AI is embedded into our lives. But looking at ADNOC, you know, human capital, planning, strategy, building strategy around people and future capabilities. Can you give us more insight around what ADNOC has been up to and how that has been embedded as well within reviewing and looking at future capabilities?
Sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, ADNOC is always up to something, right? A company our size is always forward-thinking. But let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get straight into it. Our human capital function in ADNOC Refining, which is where I work, has gone down from 183 people to 59. Okay, 59. And that doesn't mean that people have been fired. It means that people have been redeployed and moved. What are we up to? Well, let's focus on AI. If you're in procurement, IT, HR, and you ask us a question, you will get an answer from our artificial intelligence Ask HC. Okay? Call it Ask HC. A lot of that is machine learning, so a lot of it is just pre-programmed answers. For example, how many days holiday do I have left? The machine looks, tells you, bang, gives you an instant answer. The evolution of that is to try and get the machine thinking ahead, a cognitive behavior. So in the future, do we expect these Ask HC things to be more developed? Yes. And they should start to answer some of the questions more like a person. But we're years away from that. So that's what we've done on the first side. The exciting stuff, the stuff I get really excited about because I'm a bit of a geek. We've now got machines, artificial intelligence-led machines that inspect pipelines underneath the ocean, fully automated. And they're not just cameras looking. These machines go and fix and do things on their own without needing any human interaction. So that's a really great example. In terms of HR, just for a second, there's definitely a movement and a retraining happening within the HR function. Something you touched on, actually. We need a different set of skills in HR now than we ever used to. Why does that link to AI? Well, I gave the example of Ask HC and automated responses, but our business leaders are looking for HR to drive the change, to be the catalyst, to be the project managers. And if we aren't able to do that, in will come a PwC, a KPMG, a Boston Consulting, who will charge us millions of dollars to tell us what we should already know. So I see AI being a huge advantageous tool for us. We're doing the same as Schneider. We've got competencies now automated. Everyone is filling in these incredible behavioral surveys that are telling us where they need to focus on, and we're using that for the first time. But on the granular level, we're trying to make our user experience better for our 48,000 employees.
And if I may, just to follow up a question here. So if we look at future capabilities, what will ADNOC look at from future talent, incorporating the fact that AI is in everything that we do? What is the different lens that you look at talent today from a capability perspective?
Yeah, good question. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we should ever be scared of change, okay? We were just talking about this in the break. I don't know about you guys, but internally, we don't need executive assistants anymore. We just don't need them. The job doesn't exist. CEO said to me last week, in the time it's taken me to pick up the phone, call my EA, tell them that I want a meeting with this person, this person, this person, and I want it to be virtual, I could have sent click, click, click on Microsoft Teams, and it's done. And actually, it's more impactful if it comes from me, because an email is from the CEO. I'm like, yeah, good point, well made. So to answer your question, I think a lot of entry-level roles are beginning to change. And the competencies we need for those roles need to significantly change. We now have, in our legal department, the old EA legal is now training to be a legal advisor. In HR, our whole HR admin assistants are now being trained to go into shared services to deal with multiple different things. I think capability in HR has to go up a notch. 30 years ago, we were called a personnel department, okay? And now, we're no longer human capital. Some people call them the happiness police or whatever other fancy job title they give them this year. But the point is that HR are becoming more of a centralized project management office to help drive cultural, behavioral, technical change. That's the future of HR. The low level, if you're ever speaking to son, daughter, friend, colleague about should they go into HR, what is it? It's not the same as before. It's not employee relations and just sorting people, helping people. That's still there for sure, but it's becoming a smaller and smaller element. You are the catalyst for change, and that is the competencies that we need. And AI will only enhance that offering.
Great, which is the question. Natalia, yeah?
I just want to build on what James said, actually yesterday, and I mean, that just comes, in the right time. I was speaking to someone from a colleague of mine, right? And she was asking me, Natalia, where do you spend most of your time in your role? And I'm like, good question. You know, like, let me check my calendar. And I went through my calendar, through the team's kind of meetings and invites to see just for myself. And actually what I realized that today, 80% of my time, 80 to 90%, it's spent on talent developments, leadership developments, and talent management topics. I had no other content in my calendar related to any admin-related issues or anything that you, James, mentioned. 80 to 90% of my time, talent management, leadership advisory, consultancy to our people managers, talent development, coaching, 90% of my time.
So this is a question, and I think everyone in the audience, or most of people within HR also kind of think around and may worry also about the future of HR jobs. And if we take a look at the evolution the last 30 years, it was personnel, now it's more strategic HR. Are we looking another 20, 30 years where even talent management was not going to be part of it? Would AI replace most of HR jobs? Natalia, you started it.
Yeah,
so.
I started it, and let me continue it. And maybe this opinion to some will not be super popular, but I go with it anyway, right? I don't think AI will replace humans. But I think humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And I think that's an important, again, to what we've been sharing, right? I think it's a time that it's not a choice. It's not a question that you wake up in the morning and asking yourself, shall I embrace technology or I shouldn't? No, that's not a question anymore. I mean, that's a fact, right? We all embrace technology every day, and I think James was speaking about it in his openings. We all live with that today, right? I mean, my watch tells me how many hours I have to sleep today. Like, come on. And actually, I follow it. I listen to my Garmin watch because it really tells me you need a little bit longer sleep today, Natalia, because you were super active. And honestly, I take it really, and I make sure that I actually sleep as much time as is recommended. So I listen to it.
Can I build on what you said?
Yeah, please.
This is why people don't need to be worried about AI taking their jobs. For anyone that works in human capital, I'm trying to reassure you, how do I say this politically correctly? A lot of managers are very, very bad. In fact, I'd go as far as to say they're awful. And while managers are that bad in your organization, no one here has to worry if you're in HR, because your job is to come along and help, support, and guide them. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Those managers that embrace AI and support it will quickly overtake those managers who go, I don't have to change. And this is an evolution, guys, that's been coming for a while, right? And you can talk about it in any area of personal development. You know, if you go back 20 years, it was the discussion on gender, which is still a current battle. Managers that embraced it and said, right, we're going to embrace gender diversity, their companies now make more money than those that haven't. Yeah? AI is going to be the same. But I was asked a brilliant question in the break by a gentleman at the front here, who said, look, should we be scared? Are you trying to scare us, or are you trying to enlighten us and get us excited? I think we're trying to get a bit of both. And you hit the nail on the head. Those that embrace it and understand how they're going to use it, great. But while the managers are really, really poor, we've all got a job, so don't worry.
Yeah, Bursu, please.
I would like to add one more point to give a little bit of relief, at least for all of us. Talent acquisition, I think, personally believe that AI is never going to replace, for example, humans. Because, I mean, you let AI to do the screening, do the first interview, second interviews, but we will never let the AI select a person that we are going to recruit finally at the very end. So there is going to be a human interaction. There is going to be a need for a real human resources function and the good leaders at the end of today. So, but all the admin stuff that we have been talking about, like the tasks that shared service centers are doing, for example. Now shared service centers are replaced, the call centers are replaced with chatbots. But when it comes to like real quality input that humans are contributing, people development, selecting the final right candidate for the culturally good fit in the organization, there is always going to be a need for us, I believe.
But I think to that point, I think, and to come back to James' opening part, right? I think we need to recognize the disbalance between front office and back office. I want to come back to that example, right? So yesterday when you were talking to one of your colleagues, right, you said that they have 240, if I remember well, front office customer experience type of use cases testing, where back office has 1,000, which tells me that as consumers, all of us will already live in an AI-enabled environment, right? But as a back office in our organization, we probably don't, because 240 to 1,000, it's a big difference. So when you go back to your organizations, you have to ask yourself, are we truly embracing the digital technology or AI or machine learning or in our kind of at our work? I think that's a massive question to, and a very critical question to ask. And if we don't, right, how do you get fast on that train so that you don't stand alone on the station while the train has already kind of left the station years ago, right?
Yeah, and I heard a CEO give a speech last week and said, look, AI is coming, but I don't want to do it because it may remove some of your jobs. And he was trying to, this is not in ADNOC, by the way. This is just before I get fired. ADNOC's always watching. But no, and he was trying to reassure people. Look, AI is coming, but I don't want to embrace it because it may affect some of your jobs. He meant that as an arm around the shoulder. All he did was scare everybody. And you've got to be ready for that change.
Great, and let's stay on this point, because if we take a look at AI, that's not limited only to HR. It's across the organization. We're looking sales, finance, operations. So where do you believe is the role of HR leaders in such business transformation? And what would be kind of the key elements HR leaders need to have the watch out and imperatively be involved in to ensure the success of such transformation in organizations moving within to AI?
Is that to me?
Yes, you can have a stab at it.
So I think my message is really direct. HR partners need to be able to explain to any of the business leaders the benefit of AI and how it's going to enhance their business. That is the current toolkit you need to have at your disposal. And like anything you do, whether you're reorganizing your OD from the top to bottom, you have to highlight the business benefit. But let me be really open here. AI scares a lot of people. It scares a lot of people because it is so rapidly moving. Yeah? The skill set to answer your question, Mina, is you need to be able to articulate very clearly the business benefits and the risks and the people impact and explain that your workforce will evolve because of this. A HR leader needs to have the same skills they've always had, which is the ability to collaborate, the ability to resolve conflict. This is a good HR leader has those skills, but now they need to have a new thread, a new string to their bow, which is their ability to talk digitally and technology advanced, like a very, very high level. And that's something I'm learning as well. Everyone's working on something. I'm learning on how to convert technology into business strategy. And that's, HR leaders need that skill. Well,
yeah. No, fully agree with you, James. And I think, as many of us and many companies, right, we go through this kind of use case testing of AI in different elements, whether it's customer service, whether it's finance, whether it's legal, whether it's HR. I think it's also a big call for action to all of us to be a little bit more vulnerable and to speak openly about things that work and things that don't. Because it's very easy to come on stage and say, okay, AI is, it's our customer service, kind of drives much better customer satisfaction. That's all great. But then you need to take a critical look onto your own operations, right? And see if it's, take your customer to, when we, order Uber, right? We get upset when it doesn't arrive in 3 minutes. We are like, what the hell? Like, where is my car? And then when we go back to our work and it takes 6 months to sign a supplier, well, you know, and we don't get upset, and we are like, oh, okay, you know, there is a, you know, another paper, another, you know, document I need to sign. Yeah, well, we need to take really a critical look and see, you know, where it works and where it doesn't, and where it doesn't work, right? And when the existing process doesn't work and doesn't make our life easier and better and more faster and more agile and more productive, we need to be honest with ourselves and say, guys, that's the time for change. And I think that's where HR can play a massive role in highlighting some of these areas where things could change, right? And where leadership has a massive responsibility to drive and make this change a reality.
And Burcu, if we may, just on that specific point, but going a little bit further on experimenting with AI, I mean, it's interesting to also see what's working and what's not working, but can you tell us how does HR partner with IT, you know, examples of potentially also the option of it not working? Just some light, please.
Sure. Well, a very recent example actually. This week we have started in Biogen a globally a culture study, and part of that is there is a tool not developed by Biogen IT department, but it is purchased from Korn Ferry. Apologies. It is called Remesh. So Remesh is a live employee survey platform. Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, it's a... There is this... Burcu, you okay?
You okay?
You okay?
Yeah. And you have kids at home, so school-age kids. Well, the platform is called Remesh, and it is a live environment for an opinion survey, employee survey, basically. Questions come based on the answers of the audience, crowd audience. All employees are live in the platform. It changes questions, asks further questions, and etc. It was amazing when it was presented to us, and we started to test it, and then we finally yesterday did the real live session. And what didn't work is basically the ethics part, I guess. Now, at the end of the day, when we wanted to dice and slice the data, based on demographics, based on whatever you want to dice and slice it, there are certain boundaries. Every country, there are certain data privacy regulations, this and that. So we were stuck with I don't know how many lines of data that we cannot really analyze and make sense of it because of this kind of ethical boundaries. And at the end, we couldn't ask any demographics questions like gender, age. It was prohibited because it is a global initiative. Every country has certain limitations as well. So when it comes to data privacy and how data is being used, I think we are failing a lot, especially in HR. We are handling a lot of sensitive information, employee information, that we may not be able to use properly, probably.
Yeah, and just staying on that, and I think, you know, bringing up the AI ethical principles, be interesting to know, you know, the panel's opinion. James, you know, keen to know your opinion, and followed by Natalia. But with AI ethical principles, what is it that we need to be looking at from an HR lens and then potentially from a business lens as well?
Yeah, the problem with ethics and AI is there's no governance, there's no framework. AI is the Wild West, honestly. And you've seen on a public scale companies such as Facebook, or Meta as it's now known, being fined because they're using AI unethically. And you've got leaders such as Elon Musk saying we need to slow down. Yeah? For me, I think, in the words of Spider-Man, another movie quote, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think we do have great responsibility to use AI in the right way. You can have all the automation, but I repeat why people are so important. You have issues of gender, religion, you have all of these things that, if they're automated and managed wrongly, could get the company in trouble. And you have a lot, now these tools are so intuitive. They can collect data that you don't even know about your family tree, the shopping habits of your spouse or your children. Yeah? Imagine the reputational risk if your company said what was an innocuous capture form. You know the ones where it says optional for you to fill in? Yeah, this is very common. If you do any form, it's optional for you to fill this in. Next of kin. If companies use that data against the will, and this is happening in America all of the time at the moment, you are landing your company in reputational risk territory. You could easily act unethically because data is power now. Data is power. And these AI tools capture data that would take a call agent 10 years to do. They can capture it in minutes. How you use that data, to use my Spider-Man analogy, is really, really important, and you have to act ethically. Otherwise, you could get your company in real trouble.
And if we zoom it a little bit more onto, working environment, performance, I mean, there's a lot of data available today in regards to productivity. We also had one of the sessions that talks about data analytics and how they drive productivity and all that exposure. So where are the fine lines where HR stands in from that perspective? And where do you believe, again, the ethical principles are in to protect the employee, but then at the same time empower their capabilities?
Yeah, and I think James touched on that, right? I think in what Moon is describing, I think this element of bias, right? I think, in fact, there is always have to be like almost this, I don't want to say people, but like a second pair of eyes, because it's true that even if manager looks at the data, right, he or she can be biased, right? Because he or she may be biased towards that individual. So he or she may interpret the data in a way that will serve or disserve that particular individual, right? Now, with AI, we have potentially an opportunity to get away from this bias, but I think the data is only kind of has power when it's in the hands of the right people. Yeah. Let's say it out loud as it is, right? So how do we as HR and leaders in our organization build those capabilities in our people to be these data ambassadors, so that data that we get out from productivity studies, HR analytics tools, how do we use this data in a way that will be serving the wider community or organization, right? And here maybe the point that you and I touched upon earlier, now the discussion around ESGs, right, environment, social, and governance piece is critical, right? But it's true again that not all of us understands, right, everything that goes into ESGs. So how do we develop internally the capabilities within our organization where we can connect everything that we do and all the data that we'll get to everything that may have a potential impact on the value of our share price and on the value that we create for the market.
Just a final comment on this. I want to sort of try and bring this together with a real life example. If I was to say to any HR leader, what am I really excited about with AI? We've all done engagement surveys, yes? We've all done engagement surveys. Imagine now AI being able to take all the analysis which HR functions spend weeks and months looking at patterns and trends and trying to advise a CEO what is really happening in their organization. You're really excited about that, right? I'm really excited about it because it would save hours of work, and if the AI is right, will be something that the company can really use. You're now in a situation where that tool, which exists and is only going to grow, it's in its infancy, but it's going to get bigger, you could be sitting down with your CEO and saying, the machine says that you and your leadership team are really bad at this. It says it here. And you've got to have all the skills in your locker to have that conversation in the right way. To your point about people throwing it away, I can see it now. Leaders going, well, I don't trust that. That's just what the computer says. I know better. My people on the ground are telling me something completely different. How you manage that relationship is critical for the future of AI.
And to that point again, and I was going that I'm going to share kind of a live demonstration. So yeah, and I will do that. So within Schneider, we have actually our own chat GPT. Its name, and I don't want to use he or she because I don't know, is Joe. Okay, so I asked Joe this morning actually, what about ethics in AI? And I'm reading it from my Teams. It's on my Teams message with chatting with Joe here, and I can ask any questions. Ethics in AI is crucial for responsible and ethical development and development of AI system. As AI becomes more advanced and pervasive, it's important to consider the potential impact on privacy, we spoke about that, bias, transparency, and accountability. And then it goes on and on and on. But wherever we sat, you know, and one could say, maybe guys, you actually came here by, you know, preparing your answers to the question with ChatGPT, but I mean, this is a computer telling me that, and I think it's, you know, we can validate the accuracy of that as well.
And you know, a new growth industry, if anyone wants an investment, universities are now investing in anti-AI technology. Can you believe that? Because graduates now, they now have technology to see if AI has written it. And AI are like, challenge accepted. And you've got companies that are there inventing anti-AI technology. So it is the Wild West, to repeat my point. It's changing so fast.
Yeah. And so I think for, you know, keeping the audience hooked on AI, I think it's where do we preserve the human element, right? How important, even as an HR leader, is in what we do, the values that we build. What would be your message today to the audience, knowing AI is here to stay and develop and grow, but how do we preserve who we are within this world of change? Burcu?
Sure. I mean, I will connect what Natalia and James said as well. I think our role is being a great project manager, like advising people and making people excited about it. And I think we should be really paying attention to the ethical boundaries and educating our people around us about the risks when it comes to the ethics and the data privacy issues. And our role is coaching, developing, and as James gave the example, giving the message in the right way to the hierarchy or whomever is the counterpart, that we can create the impact. Because, I mean, you can deliver the message to the CEO in a way that you can even lose your own job. Or you can deliver the message to the CEO in a way that you can enhance the organization, you can basically give it back to the employees or the society, giving the feedback to you and correcting certain things that they were asking as well. So I think the authenticity and contribution on what AI brings us is the key.
Yeah, I'll add to that.
James?
I said in my opening remarks that we love shiny new things in the Middle East, and AI is the biggest shiny new thing out there. And my message to everybody is, it's only as good as the strategy that goes with it. Don't think short term and roll it out just to say we've done it. Think about the medium-term strategy from a workforce planning perspective. You have to win the hearts and minds of your people and explain how their roles will change in a good way. Don't do the CEO from the other company I mentioned and scare everybody. Jobs will change. That is absolutely fair, but they could change for the better. And you could have a better company if you use AI in the right way. So my message is clear. Roles will change. AI is here to stay. Don't roll it out as a shiny new toy. Think about an integrated long-term strategy and how it's going to enhance your business. And then, final comment, hold yourself accountable to it, right? If it's not working, change it. Don't necessarily think, well, AI is the new shiny thing, everyone's doing it. If your company isn't doing the building blocks, the foundations, you're not mature enough, AI is just going to hurt you. Be ready for it and say, right, it may be 2027 before we go live, because we've got some big problems to fix internally. Then go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, James, you said it, and maybe actually, I think, and maybe I actually want to come back to your first question, Muna, and correct myself, because I think this is what we shouldn't be doing. And I did it today, and I'm going to take a full responsibility of that. Yeah? When Muna asked me, give us an example of Schneider and how you're implementing AI, and I told you about the tool that we are using for talent development, but maybe what I should have told you about is not about the system or the process that we put in place leveraging AI, but how did I contribute it to drive the cultural change that is possible through the use of technology. Absolutely. So I think as HR, as leaders, I think we have a massive opportunity, because I think they speak about technology and what we do with technology, yeah, okay, but how do we drive change around adopting this technology, and how do we get to the minds and hearts of our people? I think that's more interesting, and that's more impactful, and that's where we can truly drive a massive change.
And if I may, I'll also chip in, just coming from the talent market, or looking more at executives, and I'll give you an example. So within Kingsley Gate, as a firm, we have a lot of AI tools that we use during our selection process. So whether it's how the leaders think about making decisions, what is their cultural preferences within organization, or where in environments they operate in. But then I deal with a lot of people coming in, or I speak to, that have done so much of operations, logistics, technical roles, and they ask me the question saying, on those types of responsibilities, there are technologies that are taking place of the jobs that I used to audit and used to make sure that they are all running smoothly. That's all being replaced by technology and AI tools. What is it my focus? What do I need to look at? And my answer will always be, in particularly the fast-moving environment that we're in, it's really embracing the individuality of the person, of the talent, of the leader, and looking at what do they bring different to the table. And stop thinking about jobs of now and today, but really looking at what are the strategies of the organizations? Where are the departments heading? Where are the organizations heading? Where the industry sectors are heading? Because the future talent is fixated and is really being prepared to what is ahead of us. And knowing AI is there are a lot of technical areas that they're going to be covered by those tools. So what are the key elements, the soft skills, the capabilities that we need to unlock as HR professionals, as consultants? What is it that we need to do to help people think more about the added value they bring to the organization, as opposed to technical capabilities, skills that you can actually then have them replaced in the future with AI capabilities? Yeah. Good. We've got some time. I'm sure many of you will have questions. We're going to open it up to the audience. And yes, please. It just needs a press. يمكن إذا حضرتك تضغط على yeah, it should. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Adi Ahli, HR Director at Fahar. Thank you very much for the great first presentation and the panel discussion. Basically, I have two questions. First question to Natalia and James as well, one more. So you have talked, Natalia, about the open talent market. Mm-hmm. So my question will be, how we will be able to utilize artificial intelligence in competency assessment? You have talked about the talent and skills assessment. So in terms of competency and skills assessment, how we will be able to use artificial intelligence? James, thank you to you also. In terms of talent acquisition, it was mentioned that selection of the candidate is completely, or we can say totally, cannot be dependent on AI. However, there are areas where AI can be utilized. So if you can elaborate more. Thank you very much.
I can go first. Thank you for the wonderful question. I'm not sure if I'm going to have an answer. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT, but I'll try. Okay. Look, at the moment, and I think Burcu also alluded to that, right? we don't really, so the open talent market that we have internally, and again, I'm speaking about the tool because I think that what the question is alluding to, we don't, and that's a big difference. We don't actually collect this data at the individual basis. So our intent here is to make individuals, our colleagues, aware where they are in terms of their skills, in terms of their competencies, and where they are in their career journey, and what are their aspirations, right? Now, if you're asking me, will we collate this data to see where we are on certain skills as an organization? I'm not sure. Because I think the point, what we're trying to do, we want to bring the career responsibility into the hands of individuals. And if I speak about the change, that's a massive change that we are trying to drive within the company. Now, to that extent, I think COVID, you know, we speak about COVID and all the negatives, but there is a lot of positive thanks to COVID, and I want to speak about that, right? I mean, I think because of COVID and because we said, okay, guys, let's go wide, let's go everywhere, I think a lot of people have actually come to the realization, and I really want to hope, and again, I'm optimist by nature, so I want to hope that a lot of people come to realization about what they want to do, right? What is the value of me to my day, to my organization, to my whatever family, and we can go on and on and on, right? And I think because of that, we actually capture a very good opportunity to hand over the responsibility of career planning, skills assessment to the individuals. Now, are we there yet? 100% yeah, probably not, right? Not probably, definitely not. Does it require more efforts in terms of, you know, changing, driving this transformation, if you wish? Absolutely. Are we doing it? Every day. And when I spoke about how my day looked like, a lot of it is about that, right? So, and I think because of technology, we also need to realize, and this is a great opportunity as well, not for us as leaders or HR, but as individuals as well, as Natalia, as Muna, as James, as Buju, we have a lot of choice on where we want to be, what we want to learn, what we want to talk about, where we want our career to take us. It's in our hands. Now, the question is, you have all this information, what you're going to do about it? Yeah, well, that's the question. And if you're going to do something about it, I'm pretty sure you will be this human with AI that will replace the human without.
Natalia, that is skills. And in terms of competency, is there how AI can help us to, let's say, assess the competencies?
No, I think one way that the competencies can be used, right, is definitely, and again, it's a question that you have to assess in your organization. Do you want skills and competences to be in the hands of individuals, or you want skills and competences to be in the hands of organization solution or whatever this function is called, right? At the moment, what we do on the competencies piece as well is that when it's a self-assessment, again, and I have to kind of be very, it's not a managerial assessment, it's a self-assessment, right? So you kind of assess yourself on competencies, and it can tell you what are your gaps are, and in your role, whatever you are, how you can close these gaps. The point is that what we are doing, and I can only share about our experience, right, is how do you get from point A to point B? So if I'm, let's say, a junior HR business partner, right, and I have a set of competencies that I should have, right? If I do a self-assessment, I can see where I'm strong and where I still have, you know, room to grow, right? Now, the way it can be used by an organization, if you have a consolidated view, you could take that picture and see where you are at. But I think what is more important is how do you create this responsibility on the individual end so that individuals take responsibility for these things. Because I also want to bring another point is that we believe, and Muna, you spoke about this, you know, and there was a lot of conversations about this. People learn in different ways, right? And people acquire competencies and skills in a different way, right? So I think if an AI has an ability to individualize things for individuals, I think we can use that to kind of maybe tailor a bit the way that individuals learn to their specific needs and interests. So it can be used in that way as well, using AI in tailoring the competencies developments to the individual learning style, if you wish. That could be an interesting use case that I think company could try on.
Yeah, to just build on Natalia's point, competency development over the years has taken up so many of my team's time. So much time. James, we're going to map the entire competency of the business. By the time they're finished, it's time to start it again. So I'm not a fan. If AI can help speed that process up, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And that, for me, is the future. We're going to need different competencies tomorrow. If AI can speed up the process and help me dictate what they are, amazing. It will help you. I have a question for you to answer the question you asked me about how will it help with talent assessment. Let's say you wanted to employ Muna here, okay? She's a nice lady. She's interviewed really well. The psychometric test came back, very low score. Would you stop the recruitment? No.
Why?
Why? I agree, by the way, but I want to know why. Sorry, David. Sorry, David. There's David over here.
Because to me, I had a live example with my previous employer. The assessment result was giving me that, Ali, be careful, and however, he might be fit. He didn't, the assessment was some kind that don't hire him. But I hired him, and he was successful upon the probation period, even before the completion of the probation period. Because to me, there are other aspects also involved in the recruitment. There are other criteria involved. If, for example, physical interview, it will give you in terms of attitude how the candidate looks like. But assessment, it will give you more theoretically exactly the candidate how look like. So assessment, I will take it 30%. There are other criteria which help me 70% to reach to the conclusion whether the candidate fit or doesn't fit for the position.
And as a CEO, sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to have a very different opinion here, and I'm sure that Dr. David's going to give us an insight, but I've been in the search industry in assessments or more psychometrics, evaluations. I mean, it is extremely powerful with where AI is moving today. And the evolution of the psychometrics or the evaluation systems are becoming extremely intelligent, where if I actually sit with a prospect candidate and we go through the results and I actually talk them through of what I believe their personality is, they're in shock. They're saying, Muna, how do you know me? We just spent an hour in our conversation last week. And I promise you today, I think it's how you really understand, interpret the assessments. And then obviously it's not all 100%. There also needs to be meetings and also interface. There are different types of tools in regards to for leaders and senior executives. But the way that the technology and AI is used in evaluations are just remarkable.
So
we're going to go into a debate.
Wait. So listen, it's okay. Let's get right into it, okay? Well, my friend, I'm with you. So listen. AI is evolving, okay? And I do believe I've done these leadership behaviors, whether it's Gallup or all these things, and it's scary how accurate it is for a leadership behavior.
We need to get him in.
However, I do not believe my ability to decide if a shape flipping this way over here, the square's now got 4 dots and it had 3 dots. That has no ability for my ability to convince a CEO that his leadership team needs to change. Now, I'm sure someone is going to tell me otherwise. My point about this is, and we've gone down a very, very dark rabbit hole here on psychometrics. But my point is this. If we use this HR director as an example, there is still a huge gap with the credibility of AI over human opinion. And do I believe that will ever truly go away? No. And I think on the behavioral aspect of AI, there's a lot more research and credibility gone on it. But on the other side, the problem solving, numeracy skills, I'm still a skeptic myself, and I'm supposed to be the one stood up here embracing new technology. So, David, don't kick me when we go outside. But it'd be really fascinating to link this forward, and we want to go back to the audience now for other questions. But it'd be really interesting to see how much SHL, who obviously do this 100% of their time, are able to help enlighten this to us, because I'm in a similar school to you. So.
Yeah, I think we should have the view of Biogen as well on that.
Yeah, do you want to add?
Sure,
because
we
need a deciding vote here, because.
I'm in a very comfortable situation.
Oh, okay,
after
great.
hearing different views. Well, I mean, in Biogen specifically, and this is my experience with my other colleagues when I'm chatting with them as well. I think in HR world, we are stepping away from the traditional way of skill assessment, training needs analysis, competency assessments. It's more the cultural fit more important for us. So therefore, we don't do these skill assessments or competency assessments anymore, so we don't need the AI to enhance it. But we are looking at really the cultural fit of the individual into the organization. So we use the psychometrics for that, but we use our own judgment as well at the end of it. That's why I gave the example of talent acquisition. We let the AI selecting the 3 candidates out of like thousands of applicants, but then out of these 3, there is a human interaction selecting this final candidate to recruit. So little bit of both.
Yeah. But from the 1,000 to 3, there are layers and layers of processes happening where that literally is moving forward today.
Sorry, please. No, and just to try and close this subject, but there's also other things we haven't mentioned. So the spider tools that are available now to skim read CVs are amazing. And you can train them to look for certain companies and common threads. So that's definitely something we should embrace. But yeah, it's that credibility part.
And I think the point is that also I think one should be very clear about the use of psychometric. I mean, because obviously, and why I'm saying that, because very often than not, I mean, you don't need to predict the behavior of the person in that particular situation from, like, it's more of a trend and looking into the future, right? So if you can connect your psychometric assessment with where you're trying to go as an organization, I think these tools can be very valuable and kind of, trimming down your shortlist, right? But also helps you to make more informed decisions.
Excellent. Questions? Yeah.
Okay. My name is Ajit. I'm with Fahar as a principal advisor. I was speaking on organizational agility and the AI other day. The words that I heard today, 2 words, one is AI, another is care. So let me debunk that because I'm an eternal optimist. And the way I see evolution of AI is similar to evolution of electricity back in 1900s. So the data is like electrons, and once they are energized, it becomes electricity. Same way, it is the AI. Now, handle with care. If you don't manage electricity, you will get shock of your life. But if you deploy it properly, you can run, this lighting, the ceiling fan, the motor, the cars, whatever it is. So it's up to us how we deploy AI in our organization and how we can make the most out of it. So that is the philosophy I believe in, and probably I think we should not go out of this room with scare, but with the more optimism that we can use it. Now, question from my side is, I think it was Natalie or maybe a lady from our Biogen. We talked about the mentors. It will automatically skill gap and highlight the short-term assignments and mentorship and all. Can AI replace a mentor? Do you see that in future?
Great question, and we exchanged a little bit about that during the break, right? I think we were speaking with I think yes, yeah, Basma, I see you, yeah, we kind of exchanged that. And again, I'm like you. I share with a lot of internal optimism, and I'm walking out here, working every day with hope, right? Not with scare, right? But I think in terms of mentorship and coaching, and again, maybe not a very popular opinion, I don't know how AI will replace that in the future. I think it has an ability to provide some intellectual rationalization to some elements. I'm not sure how it will be able to, because for me, when I have a coach or mentor, it's important that the coach and mentor recognizes what I feel, emotionally speaking, in that particular moment. So if I share a story with you, you know, I hope with a kind of, you know, the tone of my voice, you know, with use of my body language, maybe with my face expression, you can actually relate what I'm experiencing and feeling. For me, that's important in the kind of coaching, mentorship type of relationship.
The technology on emotions exists already, right? It was invented in 1999. So the technology exists where AI can listen to your tone of voice, how you're telling a story, and can respond. Do I think it will replace coaching? Not in our lifetime anyway. Not while I'm in the world of work in the next 25 years, because that is a step too far for the candidate, for the company. I wouldn't want to do it. I would want another person to read me. Do I think on a more granular level that the frontline customer service will become more emotional and intuitive? Yes. I think that's a natural evolution, but not from a coaching and mentoring perspective.
I agree to both. I mean, but I don't think it is purely emotions. It is also, I mean, as you said, AI can
do it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, can relate. But I think in the success of this coaching and the mentoring is the person, individual involved in this needs to relate. There is the human nature of that. You need to relate to somebody that you can really open up, discuss, and improve, basically, grow. So I don't think this is gonna happen soon. That I don't think I will see it in my lifetime. Maybe later AI will become so excellent and the dialogues between AI and humans are gonna be so emotionally intelligent. I don't know, but in the next 10 years, I don't think we will see that because of the need of the human nature that we need to relate. One quick example to that, I mentioned that we have this mentoring platform. Out of these development plans and the performance reviews, people are assigned to the mentoring program and the mentoring platform. And this platform suggests you a mentor, certain mentor, based on the needs that you will have. I myself tested the system, and the system suggested me one mentor. I had a chat, I couldn't relate. 2, 3, 4, finally the 5th mentor was okay for me to deal with and talk to. So therefore, it's not only reading the emotions or the needs, it's basically human nature needs somebody to relate to.
Yeah, and just a final comment on this, coaching and mentoring, forget AI for a second. As an industry, that's moved on leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. If you sit down with a really good coach now, they don't talk to you about work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They ask you, how's your relationship with your wife or husband?
Yeah.
Are you a good father, brother, sister? What do your friends think of you? And you're sitting there going, what the heck has that got to do whether I'm a good HR director or not? And they say, look, you can't be two people inside work and outside of work. And that evolution, and I really believe in this, if you haven't got yourself a coach or mentor that helps you, it's almost a lifestyle coach now. Yeah? And that technology, the behaviors and the standard of coaching is jumping up so much, and I'd advise everyone to go and get one. It will really help you.
And just last comment on that, at the end, if you get a coaching, or my personal view from an AI tool, it's an encyclopedia of data, right? At the end, we get coaches because of their experience, because of their backgrounds, because of their empathy, because of their connect, because of their success. So does that machine, can the machine replicate that? Not entirely. I wouldn't believe that. It's that whole human experience.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That will machine never, come to speed to it.
But I want to ask the question back. What do you think?
This reminds me of a famous, dialogue from Airbus CEO. This fly-by-wire, concept when it was introduced. Eventually forecasted that even the planes can be flown automatically with the chip, the computer placed in the cockpit. But still there will be a pilot required because passengers sitting in the back will not buy tickets if they are told that there is no one in the cockpit.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
it is more about the empathy relation, and that what you talked about is the more about the trust. If I don't trust a person, like you said, first 3, 4 mentors suggested, you were not comfortable with it because that click, that chemistry has to happen. Then only the real coaching and mentoring can be successful.
Yeah.
So I also believe, like at least in our lifetime, probably we will not see this. But the way things are happening, every 6 months, the ChatGPT in 6 months, it become a big thing. So I don't know why by 2040, 2060, that timeline that you talked about, I don't know what it will be.
We'll see.
But for the sake of our children, right, and our grandkids and grand-grandkids, I also hope that let's say the value of the human connection will not I will go down that hole. I think the value of human connection, and I mean, look at us here.
More than ever.
Yeah, look at us here, right? I mean, we all came here today in the morning, like we woke up, we had breakfast, we came here because we want to enjoy this exchange, get to know each other, share thoughts, questions. I mean, imagine like, let's draw a timeline. In 60 years, that will not be the case. Because everybody can just sit at home in front of their laptop or whatever the device is going to be called. Probably it's not going to be called laptop. It will be this sophisticated thing, where you just, swipe a finger and it knows what you want to ask. I mean, that's scary. A bit.
I want to throw it back to the questions, but I worry about what the AI element of technology is doing to our children and damaging them. They are growing up with a whole different set of challenges that we never faced when we were kids. And their relationship often is with Siri on their phone. And that scares me more than anything else. The value of human interaction, this goes back 360, the question earlier about what skills do we need? The ability to sit down and talk to people. Graduates now being asked questions in a face-to-face interview, they're 21. Why are you being so direct? I'm sorry, I'm having a conversation. They're losing the ability. The universities are worried about this now. They're using their ability to converse and to interact and to read body language and have conversations. That is the scary side of technology, not just AI, that we all need to be aware of. Anyway, enough. Back to you.
Great questions, please.
Thank you all. So I'm Selva, I'm Programs Director in Fahar. So just to add to the education and our children's area, now in education this is visible. Now everybody uses ChatGPT to develop their essays, reports, and you started not knowing who's the good student and who's the bad student. Now when it comes to HR, as we start embedding more and more AI, for instance, previously we had consultants to write our workforce planning. Now I have Genie.ai. I just can go to Genie.ai and please develop for me a 5 years workforce planning, and it will develop a brilliant draft. And I just need to plug some numbers. Even if I gave it the number, it will plug it into the draft. So eventually, how HR will be able to understand who's actually the high performer? How will I be able to assess? In education, they have tools now like Turnitin. So it detects how much content was generated by AI. But within HR domain and human capital, how will this be possible? As we progress, now maybe as you said, not in our lifetime, it will be difficult for us to assess who is actually the good performer, because I have things like AI copilots now. I can plug an AI copilot for programmers. So it will write the if statement and it will give it the remaining of the code. So, okay, he might not be a good programmer, but he got a copilot to assist him. Maybe he was in an assessment exam for hiring. He got the whole thing done with the AI copilot. So, what are the visions of how we can monitor this thing? Because then I will not be able to assess who are actually my good employees. This is a concern that I have been always having.
I would say the ones who use the AI correctly.
Exactly. This was going to be my answer, absolutely. The ones who use the AI more efficiently and correctly probably are going to become our high performers. But when you look at the terminology, again, I think the industry is stepping away using the high performers as a terminology, but we are more using like top potentials, high talents, this and that. So again, the cultural aspect, the talent definition is gonna evolve. based on how we are using AI. The ones using AI more efficiently, correctly, in a given time frame, because it is changing and evolving. So it's going to change and evolve, probably.
And I think, Salva, to your question, I think it's also about, I think it doesn't matter, right? If I mean, James and I will be tasked, let's say, with the same task, right? He will, and he is, you know, the original language carrier, right? So there is no way if I write something about the same topic, I will write as good as James will. So I will use ChatGPT for sure, because it just will make me sound better, right? So I can get as close to you as possible. But at the end, honestly, how we did it, I think it doesn't matter. It's about the impact that the certain thing have created, generated. I think that's what, and whether we call it high performer or high impact or how we help others, I think that's what truly matters for somebody who you want to quantify or qualify as a high performer. It's how that individual generated impact on a certain topic, or you can go even a step further, how that individual helped others to solve a certain problem that they had, and how much that individual maybe copy-pasted from others to solve a certain problem that he or she has. So, you know, you could look at the performance assessment from a different angle. It's not about the what, it's about the impact.
But Natalia, don't you think this will affect the, especially for new joiners, the skills development? So if I'm a new joiner and I, for instance, a programmer, because I come from so if I'm a new joiner and I'm starting to depend on ChatGPT, because I know in ChatGPT you can write full programs, how will this help me in my skills development? Because eventually after 5 years I will be the same guy before 5 years, because I didn't develop any skills. I depended totally on the, my question is that, because should we actually enforce such, you know, rush into such technologies, especially in the, because I see the effects on the educational domain, because now teachers are like, why you are using ChatGPT?
And if I'll just rephrase that, Salwa, as well. So if you're looking at two individuals, one that really has got that experience and have done the workforce planning and have done it for years and it's been very great, then you have someone new that joined and really used the AI, did it fairly correctly. As an HR, you know, the accountability of HR, how are you going to evaluate or assess? Because at the end, exactly, if you take away the technology, which we're hoping that's going to continue and stay, but if you do take that, who's the right person to evaluate the results and the capabilities of the people?
You want to go?
Yeah.
So I think I've got two answers to your question. First is the entry-level skills have changed for the last 100 years. What you needed 50, 60 years ago is different to what you need now. To your point, you only ever have to have a conversation with somebody, line manager to employee, to know if they are, the phrase in English is blagging it. I don't know if there's an Arabic equivalent. Winging it, pretending, acting. And you only have to sit down with an individual to converse with them and understand. They don't really understand the detail. Any leader can understand from one presentation, which may look really fancy, beautiful PowerPoint slides. Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I wasn't ready for a question. Look at my slide, it's so pretty. Well, no, I want you to tell me about it. No, I don't want to. So, to answer your point, that's where the line managers come in. That is where AI will never be able to, people will be able to do a nice email, for sure, presentation, for sure. But the managers know, because it's only as good, AI is only as good as what you put into it, right? If you put in garbage, you will get out garbage. And in the break, I'll tell you a story about a graduate who sent me a brilliant email explaining how they wanted to enhance the procurement possibilities within the company, and the words they used at the bottom should not have been in a professional email, but they didn't understand what they meant. I'll leave that there for you. And they put in these words that ChatGPT had created, and they didn't know what it meant. And I knew straight away. So to answer your question, the line managers will still always be the I guess, the sense check to that. But technology is always going to change. We've got to embrace it.
Thank you. I'm not being pessimistic. I'm an optimistic person. But when it comes to line managers, I was in a conference last week and they've demoed one tool called AI Copilot for leaders. So if you are a leader and you have a meeting with your employee, for instance, for performance, it exactly tells you what you need to say. Now, this is my concern when it comes to new leaders. So it will dictate you actually what you need to say, if it went off the record, how you can align the discussion. And this is what I mean, like, we need to be more careful when we are embedding this, because new tools even are coming for leaders, as I told you, to just run a discussion, which is something, James, you can evaluate, as you said, by meeting the person.
One meeting solves
One meeting, but new leaders, if they start just depending heavily on these tools without proper base, eventually they will end up not understanding.
Yeah. But this is the point, right, Salva, to come back to this leader-led or AI-enabled performance management conversation, right? And again, to what James was and Burcu was speaking about, right? It can be only as effective as you build them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in your situation that you are describing, somebody who has 7 years of experience and probably have a lot of examples on going through the workforce plan process over the 7 years, versus somebody who done it for 1 year, I think with an intelligent system, it should kind of give you the perspective on, and I'm not saying that the years of experience matter, but kind of the impact, because it can also embed this impact element into it, right? How many of that workforce planning processes have actually yielded the outcomes? So what input was given and what output came out of that, you know? So if you have a very intelligent system, and I think I'm kind of, you know, tapping into the future, it should connect all these elements over different data points. And therefore, as a manager, you should have a fair assessment on who potentially use a ChatGPT and somebody who actually have an evidence of getting it done and, you know, producing a result, outcome, and impact.
Yeah. Leadership behaviors are more important now than ever.
Exactly.
Now more than ever.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Because, yeah, leadership, just one comment on what you mentioned. If someone is getting answers from ChatGPT and they don't have the depth, then, you know, we're very interested to hear from Dr. David. I really thank you all for your time. The speakers from our discussion panel today are still here, so if you have any questions for them in the break, you can ask them or reach out to us. I do apologize for cutting you there. We're going to have to move. We're going to have to move to the second half of the session today, and we're going to give word to Dr. David, Edwards. Yeah, no break. I think we're quite fine. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, Burcu, James, and Natalia. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
سعادة ليلى السويدي، مدير عام الهيئة الاتحادية للموارد البشرية الحكومية بالإنابة. أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة، اسمحوا لنا أن نرحب بكم مجدداً في ملتقى نادي الموارد البشرية، وأن نجدد الترحيب بالسيد ديفيد إدواردز من شركة SHL، فليتفضل مشكورا. Now, let us welcome Mr. David Edwards from SHL to the stage, as he will lead the final session of the day. Mr. David, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is the final session, so hopefully it will be interesting enough to keep your attention before you all go off for lunch and various refreshments. Now, my particular topic, surprisingly, is about artificial intelligence. You may not have known that. So it's the main topic, obviously. But really specifically here, we're going to look at talent management, and more specifically, talent assessments, and how you can implement AI and digitalization into those areas. So hopefully this will be a topic close to your hearts, being in the parts of the organization you are. And of course, I'm sure that you'll have questions based on some of the questions I heard earlier about talent assessments. Very quickly about us, SHL is the leading talent assessment company in the world, and we really focus on making sure that organizations have objective talent insight about their talent within the business, so they can make real-time decisions on really important decisions about their talent pools, from selection, development, recruitment, etc. So we can work with organizations across the entire talent management cycle. And we actually We do actually assess millions of people a year, so you can imagine the data points we have when we do digitize, and we do look at implementing artificial intelligence into these types of assessments, because data is really critical for these types of assessments that include AI. It's been alluded to in the past, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data for your AI systems, you're not going to have good results. And so you can see we have lots of data, and we're gathering more all the time. We work with many, many companies here in region and globally, from government to large private to small private. Think of a company, we've probably worked with them. My favorite's NASA, because I always wanted to be an astronaut, not a psychologist, but I'm too short and I don't like heights, so that didn't really work out for me. So we work with many different companies. And the key thing is that we look to give a data-driven and connected approach to your decision-making, so that you can answer those really critical questions about your talent in a fair and objective way, and be inclusive, because inclusivity is very important nowadays, and be fair and objective in your decision-making, as I've said. We help then your organizations ensure that you get better quality of hire, diversity and inclusion, as I've already mentioned, efficiency, scalable, time efficient, cost efficient. I'm not trying to do a sell here, I'm going quickly on to what we're here for shortly. But these are the types of results people get from using the types of solutions that we offer. We're not the only ones to offer these. We like to think we're the best, inshallah, but you tell us, okay? Now, moving on to the actual subject itself, we all know that we're in the fourth industrial revolution. It's happening, and it's happening at a rapid speed. Everyone now knows what cloud is. Everyone uses the internet. Everyone's got a smartphone, which they never, if they're away from their smartphone for 10 minutes, they start having anxiety or panic attacks. You're probably right. When I first started work, there was no such thing as a smartphone, show my age. And when I was away from the office, they couldn't contact me, which was awesome. But you cannot do that anymore. Everything's interconnected. You've got the internet of everything. Everything's connected. You can get in touch with anybody at any time, anywhere. So, of course, would that affect how HR works and talent assessment and talent management? We say, of course, it would, because now HR people, being very smart people, want real-time decisions using fair and objective data. They want to know what their talent looks like very quickly, who's suitable for a job. They want that in nanoseconds. They don't want to have to spend 3 months assessing people and finding out who's the best successor. So we help organizations in terms of digitizing their talent management. And of course, AI is implemented in various parts of the talent management approach or cycle, from selection, development, which was talked about in depth by the panel quite interestingly as well, how you would identify your successors. So these types of tools, incorporating AI, can help you make your decisions. You notice I said help you. It doesn't remove the human intervention. We'll come back to that. Humans are important, at least at the moment. No, joking aside, humans are important. So we'll come back to how AI helps you. It's not going to replace you. It's going to allow you to do more interesting strategic work and leave all the mundane, boring stuff to the AI, essentially. So it does help you answer questions such as, do I have talent that's aligned to my business strategy? Can they deliver the things, or can they behave in the ways I need so my business can actually deliver on its strategy? How about ensuring that your leaders are a good fit to the roles you have? Or if not, how can we develop them in the quickest way to fit to the leadership roles we have? All these digital solutions and AI can help you with this. How can I create succession plans that really tap into the things that this person is best suited to? So you don't go away from the personal. You can look at macro level analytics, and all HR businesses should now, but you can deep dive into individuals to make sure it's not a one-size-fits-all solution as well. So all these types of questions can be answered, or can be aided. The answer can be aided by digitalization and artificial intelligence. But again, humans are still the important cog in the wheel. It doesn't remove us. You'd be pleased to hear. Now, AI, though, is not magic. So if you're going to create an AI talent assessment or have something incorporated into an assessment that uses AI, you still need to know what you're trying to measure. Because AI may go off and measure things and tell you, oh, this predicts how someone is likely to be successful, but those things it spotted are completely illegal or discriminatory because you haven't given it some rules about what a good person should look like. So you should still incorporate a clear model of what talent is in an organization. Now, believe it or not, for decades, talent management professionals, organizational psychologists have argued about what makes someone a good talent. And the one thing we have agreed on is, finally, of course, context is really important. So having one particular competency model that you can use across different regions, across different organizations, doesn't hold true. There are some core things that people should be good at, but then you've still got to think about what role is it? What's the culture like? Which region is it? My own dissertation when I did my doctorate was about talent management in non-Western regions. My conclusion was more research is required, so, as you'd always say. But I did find that having just a generic talent model that you are going to use in the US and assume it's going to be just as effective in different regions doesn't hold true. So context is important. We might come back to that later too. But as you can see, there's some really talented people here. There's the person who was an astronaut. He was much braver than me. He strapped himself to a rocket. But these are the talented people. But how do you define what talented people are so you can find more of them and you can identify where they are in the organization? So there are models we have that suggest if someone's a high potential, this is not my computer, let's hope not this. Now, one thing you can think about is what makes someone a high potential. There were some questions about what makes someone a high potential. There are some critical skills that would suggest someone is a high potential and more likely to succeed at more senior levels. This is our own model based on 10 years of research. So when we embed this into our solutions, this is a researched model of talent that is embedded into the AI and the digital solution. We don't just make it up based on what the AI says. Does that make sense? So you could put your own competency model within the talent assessment because you know your model shows you what's successful for your organization, and the AI should be developed then to assess predictively your model. This is another example of a model we have which shows these are the types of things that make someone actually effective in a digital environment. So if you were digitizing your organization, you wanted to know the types of competencies that make someone effective in a digital environment, these are the types of competencies. So you could embed this into an AI or digital solution and identify in your organization who's comfortable here when we digitize, who maybe needs some help when we go forward and digitize all the different processes within the organization. Because not everyone's going to be comfortable, some are, but helping them identify what it is they're not so comfortable at, then you can start talking about, I'm having a bit of a nightmare here today, then you can start talking about actually how you can develop people and support them as the organizations change. We've talked about organizations changing a lot today as well, haven't we? So, artificial intelligence. It sounds great. There are some concerns, and they've all talked about those too, but what is artificial intelligence? Well, actually, it's a body of research which looks to design programs and machines that look as if they're making decisions in a human fashion, human intelligence, human reasoning. They don't necessarily have to reason like humans, but the outputs should be similar or if not the same. But often it doesn't mean that they're thinking like humans, but the outputs may be the same as a human decision. Now, of course, there's very different types of AI. Some of them are reactive. They don't have any memory, they don't have any experience, they're just smart algorithms. And so the key thing there is predictive text, for instance. Who here actually starts writing and then it suggests a word that you had no intention of writing? Predictive text. It's not 100% efficient, but it does predict what you're going to write next. That would be sort of the weakest type of AI. It's reacting to how you're typing, and the algorithm, however smart it is predicting it based on what you're doing. It hasn't any memory, it hasn't any intelligence behind it. There's no data in the system for it. But then we come to limited memory systems, which is most of the AI now, where there's data embedded into the AI system itself. And I'll come back to this. The data is critical. If you've got bad data in the system, you're going to get bad AI. But what you would do here is you would train the system with good data to ensure that when it sees this pattern of results in the future, it can predict how this person is or what they can do, etc. It's called limited memory. Most AI at the moment is in this category. There's limited memory, but it's lots of data, but it's predicting based on the data it has in the system. So again, it's only as good as the data. But then you go to, what about driving of cars? You saw the car at the beginning. I was going to mention a car, but in a slightly different way. For cars to be effective at driving you around, they can't just follow the rules of the road, they should have a theory of mind, i.e. they should be able to predict what I am doing in front or behind them so that the car doesn't decide it's following the rules, but he isn't, so they're going to have to be a crash. So for a good self-driven car, it has to have a way of predicting your intentions as a different driver, not just the car itself. So, okay, you're sticking between the lines, fine, but that driver's not driving very safely, and you're going to crash. So if it had a theory of mind, it would say, okay, I can see they're not driving safely, so I'm going to slow down. So that's the theory of mind. That's why I wouldn't trust a car to drive me. Anyone here would prefer a car that just drives them and would trust any of them right now? It's a hard no from me. I still believe humans are better drivers. I can't believe sometimes how people don't have accidents. It must be that human interaction speed. It's amazing. Now, finally, of course, you've got your science fiction type of AI. You'll see this in movies all the time. There was a great movie about this recently, where this is where the AI has a self-consciousness. It has awareness. We're way away from this right now. And my question is, do you want it? Because if you see the movies, it's all bad stuff, but not necessarily. Then, of course, you go into philosophy about if it can think like us and it has awareness, does it have human rights now? But we'll not go into the philosophy of this, but there's different levels of AI. Most of it's at limited memory right now, but it's still very useful because the best thing about AI is it can look at patterns in lots of data in a better way than humans. I'm hoping that's making sense. Now, that means, of course, that we do feel at SHL that it has high potential to improve assessments. Because what assessments do is it looks at your profile or it looks at your results and it looks for patterns in it that suggest you're going to be good at certain things. So AI is really adept at these types of things. Who here wants to manually look at 500 personality profiles to see who's best for the role? That's a hard no from everyone, I'm assuming, right? Unless you really like looking at them. AI can look at patterns of data in large numbers and give you an indication of who your high potentials are, who is a best fit to a particular leadership role at the touch of a button in real time. But it doesn't take away your expertise of who should I look to develop here, who would I choose as the next successor. It shouldn't be allowed to choose them for you. So there's lots of benefit of AI, but it's not without its risk. And so what we have done at SHL, and I'll talk more about how we've been working with the federal authority on this too shortly, we've developed a set of best practices and guidelines to help you ensure that you're using them in the best practice way, in a fair way, and you're not actually doing anything illegal, which is probably a useful thing too. So let's talk about, first of all, the benefits of AI for assessment. This is a very interesting, it's a very thin computer, right? It's not very intelligent, obviously. So the first thing is that every assessment should be valid. So AI, it can be argued, can increase the validity of assessments, that they can predict things better than previous non-AI systems. So there is an issue, as long as you design them well, they can enhance the validity, predictivity of assessments and reduce bias. Who would want to buy an AI system that excludes various groups? Maybe unintentionally, that has happened with some AI systems. You might have heard of some systems they had to close down because it found if it chose this group of people, they had better success, but it meant then that all these ethnic minorities didn't get jobs with that organization. They're not ours, by the way, rest assured. So you can reduce bias provided you design it and code it in a way that helps it to reduce bias in the decision making. There's all sorts of new sources of information you could use too. You couldn't in the past use speech as a data for actually assessing automated assessments. You would have to have an interviewer. But now you can actually have someone respond to questions online and the AI can actually assess their responses to those questions. So it reduces on time in terms of if you had to interview hundreds of people, which you probably have done in the past, but do you like doing that? Well, this can actually help enhance your interviewing and give you good results that you can still take decisions on without you having to meet hundreds of people, many of which may not be suited to the role anyway. So there can be more natural response formats. You can talk, you can behave in a certain way, and the AI can predict how you're going to be based on your behaviors. So you can make assessments that are more likely to link to what they're doing in the job, rather than just clicking on a response, for instance. And of course, better candidate experience. How many people here just like to be sent a link, click on this link and then do an ability test? Anyone? Nobody. Well, AI and digitalization means you can have a much more interesting experience, a much more interactive experience. So these are the benefits of AI, but we've seen that there are 3 core principles that you need to think about when incorporating AI assessments. 1, it's still an assessment. So don't think it's a magic box. Many people think, oh, that AI is really magic, it's done that. How did it do it? We'll come back to that because you need to know how it's done. So don't think AI is magic. It's still an assessment that still needs to be rigorously checked to see it's reliable and valid and doesn't increase bias in any way. Also, it has to be explainable. Would you like to do an assessment and get a score and maybe not get the job? And when you ask the organization, how did you get that score? Well, we took your responses and we put them in this magic box. And out came this score. How did that come out? We don't know. The box is magic. Who here would be happy with receiving feedback like this? I'm joking a little, but there have been cases of AI systems where they couldn't explain how the organization couldn't explain how the score was derived. You wouldn't be happy with that, especially if they're going to use that as part of the decision-making process. So AI assessments still have to be explainable. And of course, this is called the Sagan test. Big claims require big evidence. There's lots of people that claim big things for AI, but where's the evidence that what they're saying is true and they work? So if you're going to claim big things in science, you have to have lots of data to back up that science. So when we do assessments, we clearly have to make sure they work, they're valid, they're predictive, they don't cause any issues with inclusivity, they don't discriminate. There should be lots of evidence that you can ask for to show that they work and they're not going to bias anybody in any way about you. Hopefully that makes sense. And I will take questions later, of course. Now, those 3 core principles were the basis of the 6 best practices we've put in place in terms of AI in talent assessment. Let's go through each of these, and I might just throw out a question about some of this. So the first one is identify data requirements. Let's deep dive. When you're actually building and implementing an AI assessment, for it to be able to identify what good or bad or not so good looks like, it needs data. It needs lots of data because it's going to look at patterns in your responses or patterns in a candidate's responses to see who is likely to be a good fit, not so good fit, etc. So data is king. Not just quantity of data, but quality of data, because the quality is critical. So for instance, I will tell you shortly about how we've been working with the federal authority here to design a smart interview system in Arabic in the Emirati dialect. So if you respond to an interview question online in Arabic in the Emirati dialect, it's going to be able to assess you well because the data in it is all based on people who speak in the Emirati dialect. Now, would you be happy to have your speech evaluated if all the data in there was all 1,000 UK nationals? Not fair, right? Well, if they can speak Arabic, of course, that's another matter. But so the data is critical, the quality of data is critical, so that it's representative of the people you're assessing and it doesn't cause bias. This is an interesting one too, the transparency. As I've said earlier, would you be happy doing an assessment where you don't know how the scores were derived, but also the company using the system doesn't know how the scores were derived? You wouldn't be. Give me feedback on how you came to that score. Magic box, put number in, a number came out, thank you very much. That's not going to work. So whenever you implement AI, or whenever you evaluate an AI assessment that you want to use in the business, the provider should be able to tell you how it works, maybe a technical manual explaining the algorithms and how it works and how the scores are derived. Because if you don't know and you can't tell candidates this, then it's likely to be a legal sticking point, of course, isn't it? Another thing is to design for fairness. When designing AI, from the very outset of the design, fairness should be embedded into the system. There should be no way that it can select only certain groups, or only, if you had an AI that favored male over female, who here would complain? 50% of the room probably. Okay. So clearly you have to make sure that the system is designed from the ground up with fairness in mind, inclusivity. Another thing to talk about here, of course, is accessibility. People of determination should be able to do the AI assessment just as much as someone who isn't a person of determination. Because if it does discriminate on that, then that's not a good test either. So think about those things. This one, I've mentioned already, rigorously validate the assessments. It should be that you look at not only the content of the test, do the questions look like something I should answer, but is it measuring things that are important to the job? That's called construct validity. But also, is it predicting work? Is it predicting, so if you have a high score from this assessment, is it predicting I'm going to do well in the assessment? So you need to still do all these things just like a traditional psychometric test, because AI, if it's not used properly, can, as I think Vincent said earlier, reputational issues, and of course legal issues. If you don't know that if you just trust the AI is going to work, it's magic, that's probably not a good approach for you. Now this one, you'll probably enjoy based on all the conversations later. We believe that AI should only be used without human oversight. Who here would like to do an assessment, which is AI, and then after the assessment, you're told you don't have the job, but only the AI decided that. There's no human involved. Who would like to have an assessment like that? Nobody, I'd hope. It depends on the person, but I've not had anyone say yes to me yet. Human oversight is absolutely critical to AI assessments. It should help you in making a decision and give you good information, but should be part of the decision making. So the human intervention should always be there. In fact, when designing AI assessments, the human intervention should be there too. So when we design a particular smart interview system, once the AI has scored the data from the validation, we also get SMEs to look at the interview responses, rate them themselves, and then compare the human ratings to the AI ratings. Now, if they're measuring the same thing, which they should be, there should be some correlation there. So you have to make sure that there's human oversight, not just at the building of the test, but the decision-making itself then. You need humans to still make that decision, but that's the strategic decision. Of these people who've done the assessments, which people would best fit the role? This assessment shows me this. There's other things I'm looking at too. Who's the best fit? So there's always human intervention somewhere. You should disclose intent as well. The law is, and there's a law in the UAE called the privacy law, of course you know this too, is that you have to tell people that you're going to use an automated process, and they have to agree to use it. They have to tick the box, and if they don't, you have to have a human intervention type of assessment instead. And in fact, the law here states that if someone is going through an automated process, they can still insist that a human makes the final decision. That's part of the UAE law and GDPR in Europe. In fact, it's a global best practice. So people can insist, I want a human being to make that decision, not a machine. Makes sense? Sounds quite reasonable. As I've said, we've actually taken these best practices and we've actually worked with the federal government to actually create a set of principles and best practices for the UAE. These have been published already and they're free to download and review. Please do so. They're available already for you. So they incorporate all the best practices from global, but also they've been, of course, tailored to the local requirements as well. These are really important. If you're looking to put AI into assessments in your organization, do check that the vendors, the providers, unless you're designing them yourselves, do follow these types of principles. Don't let them just give you a magic box that no one can explain to you. Now, what types of applications can you have with AI? So I've talked about the best practices. Anyone got any questions around best practices and principles? I think are you all happy that there are these principles in place and it's not just the Wild West, as Vincent said earlier? So what can we do with AI and implementing talent assessment? So one thing you can use it for, of course, is the dreaded cognitive aptitudes, which people have started saying, oh, I'm not sure that's... Well, actually, it can enhance cognitive aptitudes because it can start helping you score aptitude tests in a much more complex way. And it can get a better candidate experience. This is an example of a semi-gamified ability test. It's not just choose an answer. You have to get to the answer by interacting with the question. So not only are you scored against getting the right answer, you're scored about how you got to the right answer. So if someone's just guessing, it's going to check that. Even if you got to the right answer, it's like, oh, they randomly checked that. But if someone was clearly getting to the right answer in the right process, more points for that, because they clearly were trying to get there the right way. So you can actually enhance candidate experience, but also increase the validity of the assessments. You can even start assessing people with AI in terms of their technology knowledge themselves. So you can actually ask people to code in real time, and the AI will score how they're coding in real time. So if you need technology skilled people, you can actually do assessments about those skills very quickly, predictively, using AI technology. So the AI in candidate experience is very important, as I've said. So I've just shown you an example of a mobile-enabled ability test. Everyone here wants to use their smartphones most of the time. So if you were told to sit at a laptop and do an ability test, or you can do it on your Apple or your Samsung, which one would you prefer? I know most people now in the younger generations, they're attached surgically to those phones. So now you can actually do your assessments in real time on your smartphones. So AI is helping with that, and is giving a better candidate experience. You can also have an immersive experience. Rather than just being sent a link, oh, do a test, you can now go through a journey with AI and digitalization. So they start out with a nice video from the CEO of the company explaining what the company is, the culture of the company, etc. Gives you a feel for the organization before moving on to do an assessment, which doesn't feel like an assessment, it feels like part of the experience now instead. They're really spending time getting to know you as a candidate and giving you information so you can make a decision later about whether you want to join the organization. And each assessment can also be engaging, immersive, and you actually respond in different ways, from answering a questionnaire to talking to the interview system and having those responses assessed, etc. You can even get feedback now automatically after the event, if that's something that the organization has put in place, where you get feedback about the results almost in real time, talking in a few minutes, based on your responses. Candidates nowadays want to do their assessments quickly, but they also want to know how they've done very quickly too. Have you noticed that? Now, what else can you do? Well, talent analytics. Some people mentioned earlier about looking at macro-level analytics, looking at overall groups, not just individuals. You can, with AI and digitization, look at entire talent pools at the touch of a button. Using different models and using the data that you might have used before for other areas, you can look at whether you have a group of high potentials in this department, or maybe you've got more high potential in this area. You can look at this with validated models and validated tools in real time, rather than having to do manual assessments, looking at manual pages. It can be all cloud-based for you, and in real time using the latest technologies. This is an example of looking at high potentials. So you can see where your high potentials sit in the organization as opposed to people that need more development. It can even provide reports for individuals, identifying their development and suggesting what they can do to develop. So it looks across not just assessment, but development too. And this is in real time again. You don't have to play with manual pieces of paper and have rooms full of paper. You can even look at succession with AI and digitization. You can look at behavioral fit to role and experience even. If you look at, we have something called an experience survey, but the research shows that behavioral fit and experience counterbalance the context of a role. So with AI, you can look at patterns of results across individuals and identify who might be a successor for the short term, but with some development, or maybe a successor in the longer term. They have more development. You can see this again at the touch of a button in real time, and you can even reuse data to look at, so if I wasn't a good fit to a particular role you were considering me for, you can reuse my assessment data to look at me for a different role instead. And you can do that through AI and digitization in a way you can't with manual processes. You can even look at, well, one thing I forgot to mention here is you see a hidden gems page on the right. The data can even look at people that you would never have traditionally considered for roles, and if it has the data, the system can actually find people that you would never have considered before. So you can start being more strategic in your talent assessment and your succession planning. What about, oh, I don't believe these people did the tests in the first place. They were sat at home doing them. It could have been their father who's got a PhD in maths, or et cetera, et cetera. Well, AI can also proctor so that it can reduce the chances of, I call it faking good, but some people might call it cheating. It can reduce the chances of that. So they will have to sit at the screen. There is a camera. The camera is keeping track of who's at the screen. Are there two people there now? Is there a group? Is there a group discussion when it shouldn't be? Has the person's face changed, so it's a different person now? AI can track all of these things. You can even see how often they've tried to Google an answer during the assessment, or try to do something on a certain place somewhere. And of course, it's a very bad technique because there's usually time limits, but people try. It even tells you all of those things. And you can even get reports that show you what they look like during the assessment. So this person, you see the little red triangle? It's so sensitive that even if they change their facial shape a little bit, it can spot, oh, that may be a different person now. So you can imagine if it's a different person there. So it reduces the chances of faking good even. AI can help you with that. And what about interviewing? Well, this is interesting. You can make interviews more effective, more cost-effective and time-effective. If you have thousands of people applying for a role, do you want to really interview 1,000 people face-to-face for that role? The answer is no. Unless you really like interviewing, let us know. We might have a job for you. So what you want here is an effective way of filtering out people or assessing people in large numbers so that you have the scores to consider. This is called an asynchronous or smart interview. This is made possible by artificial intelligence as well. What you can do is once they've completed, the AI scores the assessment against the competencies. You get an effective report in real time. In a few minutes, you have a report with the competency scores and various other things that have been measured in the assessment. You can then start looking at large numbers of people in terms of their ranking. If you do want to take a look at a certain person, you can go and review the video yourself to see, okay, the AI said this, I've reviewed it, I'm in agreement with that, it was a good response. You can still do the human oversight into the interview, as I've said. So you can still use the best practice principles here. Now, what we are doing right now, and I do need to mention this, it's important, we have a project at the moment with the Federal Authority. As I've already mentioned, we are designing the first ever video platform enhanced by artificial intelligence in Arabic, and more specifically in the Emirati dialect. So we're now at the validation stage, and we're putting sample people through the assessment, so we have lots of data to make sure what a good response is in Arabic, in the Emirati dialect. This is really important because the more data, the better. You remember I mentioned quality and quantity of data is critical. So if you do happen to have an email from the Federal Authority in the near future saying, would you like to be involved in and be, help us with this project, please do get involved, because you'd be getting involved in a cutting-edge project. No one else has ever done this, and you might be one of the volunteers. I was going to say guinea pigs. I didn't mean that. You will be one of the volunteers here that helps us make sure that this platform is effective at assessing Emirati nationals in Arabic with artificial intelligence. So please, if you are invited to help, please do, if you can, inshallah. So, final part here. I'm hoping I'm on time, but pretty much. So, as you can guess, we at SHL believe that AI can bring lots of benefits to HR if it's used properly and in a considered way. It can increase efficiency, it can increase automation and accuracy. And we fully believe that it's going to get even more sophisticated over time as we get to augmented and virtual reality. So at the moment, the virtual reality, you have to wear massive goggles and they're very expensive. But this is going to change. Over time, virtual reality will become more accessible. Don't be surprised if you're going to a virtual office to do a virtual assessment in the future, which will be just as valid and reliable as any of the traditional. But we do need to make sure that all these assessments are done in the most considered way, using best practices, and developed using those strong principles. Now, one other thing to think about here, because they talked about we talked about the Internet of Things. One final thing, just off topic a little bit, is the Internet of Careers. Has anyone heard about that? So that's something that I think will be essential in the future as well, that people will be able to look at different careers on the internet and consider them in more sophisticated ways. I just want to bring in my colleague, Mr. Farid, our MD, to just talk about the Internet of Careers.
Just a thought-provoking thing that we will hear about in the next 5 years, and this is where HR is really moving on, is the Internet of Careers, right? We had Internet of Things for like the last 5-6 years now. So what is IOC? So currently, globally, there's a big data network being built for HR. It started in the US. It's a non-profit organization called Velocity Network. Velocity Network currently is collecting all HR data under one platform, meaning you don't need your CV going forward. You don't need your assessment data going forward. You're going to own a QR code as an individual. All your data will be stored, your CV, your educational qualification, your assessment data, everything will be owned by you. And all this will be verified from all the institutions, exactly in the same way like Bitcoin. I'm sure all of you have heard about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin works because the people exchanging the currency are verifying from each end, and that's how we keep. It's actually a decentralized model of verification. Same is happening now. Universities, governments, everyone will be connected so that they can verify your education, they can verify your current employment details, everything. You don't need to send a CV anymore. You don't need to do an assessment every time you apply for a job. Everything, the whole labor market globally will be managed by this HR data network. And back to what David was saying, is that data is key for AI to work. So once we have verified data across the whole world, which is clean and perfect, then AI can work properly. So in the next 5 years, hear this out, it's coming out very soon. HR, we're seeing HR as well trending towards more of an HR data scientist. That's what our roles all will be, about data science, because it's not only about operations anymore, it's about how can we educate the network, how can we build the network to help us take our decisions. So this is the future, but it's not that far. We should see it in the UAE very soon as well. So thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and thank you, everybody. That's the end of the, get away from the speaker. That's the end of the talks, per se, but do you have any questions at all? It's probably what time's lunch, right? So, thank you very much for coming, and if you've got any questions, fine. If not, then have a good day. I hope it was interesting. Hope to see you again, inshallah, soon.
وفي الختام نشكر السيد ديفيد إدواردز من شركة SHL على هذا الطرح الواضح والقيم، كما نتقدم باسمكم بالشكر إلى جميع الضيوف والمتحدثين وشركاتهم التي تعد شريكاً استراتيجياً للهيئة، كما نشكر لكم حضوركم واهتمامكم على أمل اللقاء بكم مجدداً في ملتقيات وجلسات أخرى نطرح من خلالها موضوعات جديدة ومستجدة في عالم الموارد البشرية، وندعوكم إلى تناول الغداء، راجين لكم أوقاتا سعيدة، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.